Yes, thank you all for joining. And I'm Reverend Terence Harding, as you all probably know it by this point. I hope so. Maybe not. But I am joined by my dear friend, Reverend Janet Harrington, who is going to be our co-conductor, co-minister of tonight's service. So thank you, Janet, for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Yes.
Always happy to be part of the Open Doorway community.
Mm-hmm. And we are going to begin service with a invocation. So if you just close your eyes for a moment and we will begin. Divine Parent, thank you for granting us this space so that we may come together as brothers and sisters, like-minded individuals, in worship of your loving light, your infinite wisdom, and the divinity contained in all of us. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. As I say, every service, I keep my desktop pretty organized.
Very good now.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So if I could just ask everybody just to mute their mic for me. And I am going to read off the Spiritualist Principles, and you may, if you so choose, read along with me, and I will go slow. We subscribe to the following principles: infinite intelligence, the deity, the designing and creating energy for everything in the universe. One universe, many dimensions. From one source came all that is present in our world, our galaxy, and beyond. The immortal soul. The soul is eternal. We seek truth within ourselves, from other souls, from sacred writings, and from the natural order that sustains us. Communication between the material and the non-material world. Spirit transcends all dimensions. All souls, flesh, and spirit communicate with each other. Personal responsibility. Cause produces effect through thoughts, words, and deeds. We create ourselves and our circumstances, and we are singly responsible for our choices and creations. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is our highest morality. Thank you all. And this is the beginning of our guided meditation. So start to kind of wiggle in your chair. Maybe stretch out your neck a little bit and wiggle your arms and shoulders and legs and prepare for a guided meditation. You may hear some cracks. Some cracks. I know I hear some cracks. But that's good. It's a release. Okay. And close your eyes when you're ready. And just give me a thumbs up if once you hear the music, or I wouldn't say necessarily music, but tones. All right, thumbs up. And everybody can hear my voice. All right, got some double thumbs up on that one. All right. Breathe normally. Feel the relaxation come over your entire body.
Hi, Terence.
And that was not all your figment of your imagination. Joseph has entered the meditation. It's such a soothing and peaceful, generous voice. So we appreciate that. Makes us feel warm, doesn't it? But anyways, everybody keep just tuning into your body and breathing normally, really filling your lungs up with that wonderful breath. Really feel that air being taken in through your nose. Really fill your lungs and release. Really feel that air come throughout your mouth. And you just feel completely relaxed in your mind, your neck, and your shoulders, and your arms and hands. Any tension in your legs and feet fade away. The room around you begins to fade. The chair or seat also begins to fade. You feel as though you're floating. Begin to feel healing white light surrounding you. It is warm and peaceful. It begins to fill aura around you, and your heart. With healing energy and love. Open yourself to that light. Let it enter and go to the places in your body that need healing. This white light begins to show you different surroundings around you. Lush green trees, tall, vibrant green grass, a beautiful blue sky above you. You are at the edge of a forest. Many tall trees around you. You come to a break of this forest. Seeing an expanse of green field, grass. Soft grass you can lay in for hours, admire the sky. There's something special to this field. A large single tree at its center. You feel drawn to this tree. You feel called to this tree. And you begin to walk out from the shadow of the forest, feeling the brush of tall grass on your hands and ankles. And you walk towards it. feeling the subtle vibration of Mother Earth. Only feel peace in this place as you walk towards the tree. Surrounded by green and the blue sky above, the sound of birds singing. Singing for you and your arrival. Finally, you reach this tree, feeling energized, wanting to sit underneath it, under its healing shade. You feel protected under this tree. Its long, overreaching branches giving you respite from the sun. Cooling you down, but warming your inside, your heart, with relaxation. You sit at the base of this holy tree. You close your eyes. Put your hands on its trunk. And the large roots sticking through the dirt. And you feel its energy. This powerful source of beautiful, healing, and loving energy. And you kindly ask this mother tree if you may receive. You feel the subtle brushes of leaves falling past your nose, your shoulders, and on your legs. In this moment, you know that she has accepted. And you begin to feel all that energy coming from your hands, your back, your legs. Feels as though you're floating. Tingling sensation all over your body. As Mother Earth's healing energy entering your body. Take a few moments to absorb as much as you can. After receiving this healing, loving energy from this mother tree, you stand up, feeling energized, full of life and love in your heart. You turn around towards the tree, give a silent bow of thanks and gratitude. Begin to walk back past the tall grass into the edge of the forest. The forest begins to disappear around you. Only feeling and seeing white light. Still feeling that healing energy. And slowly that white light begins to fade. The room around you becomes clearer. Chair, seat underneath you becomes clearer. You feel the weight of your body. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes and come back to the room you find yourself in. And I would ask everybody to join in and reading along with me. Prayer for spiritual healing. And if we wanted to actually take a few moments and think of some of the names and faces of people that need this healing, that healing energy that has been given to us, we'll ask Divine Parent, Spirit, the universe to send some of that healing white light to others in need. So just close our eyes for a moment and think of those faces and those names of those people. All right, thank you for doing that. We ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from our minds and bodies and to restore us to perfect health. We ask this in all sincerity and honesty. We will do our part. We ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help and to restore them to perfect health. We put our trust in the love and power of Spirit. Amen. Thank you all for following along on that meditation, that healing prayer. On to the next portion of our service is what has become known to, we still call it the offering, but we are doing an offering not for the Open Doorway spiritual community, but nonprofit and charities that we feel need our attention and need our support. And when I'm not a spiritualist minister and doing my psychic mediumship work and spiritual work, I work at a grocery store and we're based out of California. And I know I have some friends in California and I have a lot of coworkers who have family in California, and they have been telling me a lot of the hardships they've been going through in that state. A lot of increases in cases, COVID cases. I know it's not pleasant to hear, but it is the truth and what we're dealing with right now. And we have to help our brothers and sisters and our spiritual brothers and sisters out in California. I felt like we need to contribute and help them in any way that we can. And I know that I choose a lot of charities and organizations in New York, in the New York City area especially, but I felt that we could contribute to another area that is in need of our support. So I've chosen, spoiler alert, I've chosen the California Community Foundation. Their mission is to lead positive, systematic change that strengthens Los Angeles communities. Members of this vibrant region have the opportunity to contribute to the productivity, health, and its overall well-being. A belief that is shared, a shared fate that will be determined by how successfully they improve the quality of life for all residents through health, housing, immigration support, and education. And they have a LA County COVID-19 Relief Fund. And this is a fund that will support community needs identified by the partners in health, housing, education, immigration, and will aid impacted individuals through their Pass It Along Fund. So if you would like to contribute, however amount, I would appreciate if you take a look at this this cause, and whether it be $5, $10, $20, whatever you feel like you want to contribute to the Open Doorway today, I ask you to instead, on our behalf, contribute to this fund. And the link is down below. It's calfund.org/COVID-19. And it's, or you can just Google search the California Community Foundation and find their donate page there on their website. So, good cause. And of course, now moving on to our, I'm going to send the link to in the chat box for everybody momentarily. Actually, let's try to put it in there right now. Do I have it? Yes, I do. Look at that. There's the link for everybody in the chat box to grab and go if they would like to contribute. Any little helps. And with the next portion of our service, and of course we got a flash of it by accident, but it's my introduction to our guest minister and lecturer, the Reverend Janet Hariton. And I have this beautiful picture that I have stumbled upon recently that I hope everybody can see. And this is when she received the Reverend Paul Baudet Founder Award, which we Founder Award that we gave out some time ago, and it was in recognition of her service to our community as she was interim pastor in the time that I was still studying and working to be ordained myself. And of course, when Paul, our founder, was taken ill, she stepped in and said, you know, I'm going to help and support your community and support Terence and support you, Paul. So we wanted to bestow this gift, and we will continue to perpetuate and continue to give this gift out as we go forward in our future, our bright future. But Janet Hariton is also the spiritualist, the president of the board of this Spiritualist Church of New York City. She's a psychic medium, trance medium, and has been doing this for many, many years. And she is a wonderful friend, and I always nicknamed her, she may not know this, but I and Paul would agree with me on this. We both agreed that she was, if Paul is the father of the Open Doorway Spiritualist community, Janet Harrington is the mother of the Open Doorway Spiritualist community. And they most definitely a title earned. So I'm very happy to have her with me and giving our lecture. Yeah, what an introduction. I like giving the long introduction for you, Janet, because you've just been amazing support, and yeah, opportunity to thank you in front of people, which I know is dreadful for you.
Not dreadful. It was a surprise. How sweet.
Mm-hmm. So
it's a big buildup. Wow. The host has spotlighted my video for everyone. What does that mean, Terence?
That means that you take the stage and you get to give us your lecture.
Oh, okay. That's what I was going to do. That's fine. My lecture is a reminiscence as much as it is a lecture. because some of you may know, others may not know, that I am the second generation in my family to be a spiritualist minister. I'm following in the footsteps of my Aunt Mabel Barnes, who was my father's older sister and who was a spiritualist minister in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. And I am a spiritualist minister in the, not the 20 teens and 2020s and 30s, so that we will, we're both ministers during the 30s, but in in two different centuries. And I'm very grateful to them. You see, I was born in the heart of the Great Depression, which was a very difficult time in our country, as it was around the world, in fact, and almost right in the very middle of it. And it was very common at that time for children to be sent away to live with relatives who could afford to feed them. And I was sent to live with my father's sisters. But I want to tell you something interesting about my birth. I was born at home. There was certainly no money left for my parents' last two children. I was the last one of the two. Her first two children were born in a hospital, but during the Depression, all that had to go by the wayside, and she delivered her child at home. And I was born with a caul, and I don't know if you know what that means, or even what the word is. It's spelled C-A-U-L, and you can look it up in the internet afterwards if you wish, because they have a picture of a baby who is inside the caul. This happens when the mother's water bag bursts and the child is not born. So I was for a month encased in this uterus with none of the fluid left. And as the time continues, then the uterus, the placenta, closes around the baby and really encapsulates the baby very tight. And you can see a picture of a child, of a baby in a caul, if that interests you. Now, in the American Indian tradition, and my father and his sisters, his whole family is 1/4 American Indian, this is a sign of future psychism. Particularly if the caul is removed from the bottom up. Now, my mother was very, very careful about writing such things down in the baby book that she prepared for me. And she said this doctor, who was a very staunch Episcopalian in the 1930s, came into the living room where my father's sisters had come down from Pontiac to be present at my birth. They were, of course, very psychic themselves and thought that there was going to be something special about this child. And he came to the living room and said, she was born with the caul, I removed it from the bottom up. That was correct. Yes. And they both said, yes. And I've often wondered, how did this very staunch, conservative Episcopalian doctor know about how to remove the caul to retain the psychism? So I puzzled about it for years, but I did later learn that he was definitely a staunch Episcopalian, but he was also a spiritualist. That was kind of interesting. At any rate, at about age 3.5, I was sent to live with them. There were two reasons for it. And the first one, of course, was that it was the Depression, and My father could never find a job. It was an unwritten law in the Depression that if an employer had a job to offer a man, and it was always a man, he was to offer it to a man under 50. And the theory behind it made sense. It assumed that someone under 50 still had dependent children, whereas someone over 50, if there were children, they probably were old enough to bring in a few pennies to the household each day or each week. However, my father was less than 2 months from 58 when I was born, so he could never get a job during the Depression. So I was sent to live with these aunts, and I absolutely loved it. It is true what Terence said, that I was trained at the Holistic Studies Institute under the aegis, of course, of Stephen Robinson. But in fact, my spiritual training began as a child when I lived with my aunts, with my father's sisters. It was a wonderful experience in a way. And I hope that those of you children, you see, everyone is born with the intuition, with the sixth sense, every single, without exception. But so many parents talk their children out of it because they don't want them. They may feel, the parents may themselves feel that this is nonsense and that we don't want to have anything to do with it. Or they may feel that they don't want the children to be different. Children can be quite cruel with each other. It's very easy for them to be mean and bully someone who is different. So I think it's very important that if you know children, and I'm very interested in my great-grandchildren, as I was with my grandchildren, to encourage them that a quote imaginary playmate is not necessarily imaginary. Sometimes it's spirit who is manifesting either as a broccoli deva, an angelic form that helps broccoli to grow. That was the case for one of my oldest granddaughter. But her parents were a very logical lawyer and a therapist for children, both of whom saw this as just something. It's okay to have an imaginary friend, so long as you acknowledge that it's imaginary, so long as you realize that. She's now 30, and we had dinner not too long ago together. And I said, Kate, do you remember Mr. Broccoli that you used to play with? And she said, oh, he was so much fun. But I understand he was just imaginary. And I said, I don't think so. She said, what? What do you mean, grand-mère? And I said, well, I don't think he was imaginary. I think he was a broccoli deva. What's that? That's a life form that helps broccoli to grow. And every plant has it. Really? I said, yes, you might think about it. She's been thinking about it. She's asked me many questions since then. So those of you who have children around you, it's very nice to encourage them in accepting their intuition. It's very important that it not be destroyed so early. It's harder to come back to later. Certainly it can be done. It's done in many cases, but it's much harder, so much simpler to have been raised in a family as I was that encouraged it. The first formal lesson that I had in spirit, for spirit, was from my Aunt Nell. Now, these two aunts, both older than my father, Aunt Mabel was the spiritualist minister. And she was a so-so medium, not bad, but not particularly good, but okay. She was, however, a very inspirational and inspiring speaker. Her older sister, Nell, was a marvelous medium, and the best healer that I've ever personally known. Very, very inspiring. But the first lesson that she gave me was one night when I was about 4, sitting on the edge of the bed. I was under the covers already. And she said, "Now, do you see the sparkling lights in the room?" "Yes." "Well, that's the spirit. And spirit is always with you, always protecting you, always giving you advice, always telling you what not to do, but never telling you what to do. You'll learn about that later." I went to sleep comforted by the fact that there were lots of spirit around the room, still twinkling away. That's no choice. That's how I saw it then. It was very beautiful. I'm very grateful for that introduction. We used to drive first to New York, to the community of Lilydale. Some of you may know of it and others not, but it was in the 19th century and 20th, and still is today. It was a movement where needed to get away from the cities and the heat, no air conditioning, of course, out to the country. And many, many states had spiritualist summer camps. The one at Lilydale is one of the oldest, the largest, although I'm not certain about that. And I spent part of many summers there for 10 years, from age 4 to 14, which is with my family full time. Lilydale community was thriving during World War II, as it has always been very popular, as has been the Spiritualist Church. Anytime we have been in a war, specifically a war in which there was a draft. Many, many people services at that time to speak with their sons, uncles, brothers, fathers, whatever, that they had lost during the war. That's fallen pretty much. We no longer have a draft, and it's no longer so widespread. I find it unfortunate. I think it's terribly unfair that we don't have a draft. I think we should, and I think it should be. But that's just a personal opinion. At any rate, we spent many summers starting out in Lilydale and then driving cross country, where by great demand, the younger one as the spiritual and inspirational speaker, and the other for her healing abilities. And we would travel across country from one spiritual community to another. It used to take us 12-hour days of drive from California. From New York to California took always more than a week. Somewhere, I'm not counting the times that we stopped along and stayed for a few days in the spiritual communities. I'm just talking about the driving. Because of course, in those days, it was before the autoroute, the expressways, or the limited access highways. And it was only 2-lane roads, and the speed limit was 35. When you got to the desert, you could open it up to 60. Wow, was that a thrill? I'd never been in a car that had driven so fast before. Ooh. Anyway, that was constantly for listening to my aunt's spiritual lectures, certainly, and seeing the healing that the other one did. It has been truly inspirational. And although I was trained in the Holistic Studies Institute under Stephen, really, I don't practice healing because I was taught from my aunt now. Hands-on, I always ask the questions that we are supposed to, we're taught to ask. May I touch you? So far, no one has refused. I couldn't do the healing that I do without actually placing my hands on people, because that's the way I was taught. And that's how I watched my aunt do it. The aunt now, the healer, was very amazingly so. They lived in Pontiac, Michigan, in an old Victorian house. Now, Victorian houses usually had two front parlors, one for company and for guests, and one for the family. So I was sitting in the one for the family, reading in a way that the guests couldn't see me, behind a pillar. But I could see my aunt now. And a family had brought a man in a wheelchair. Now, in the 1940s, one never consulted the establishment, had given up on them, as that was the case with this man. And I couldn't see the family at all, or the man, but I could see her sitting there, just sitting and staring. I could see her eyes moving all around. I know now that she was examining his aura. She was studying it. And it seemed to me, to be a 10-year-old, that she did it for half an hour. It's probably a good 5 minutes. And finally she said, well, I never saw what she did. I was never privy to that. But I do know that she used hands-on healing. And this family brought him to the house once a week for several months. But after at least 3 or 4 months, the man came with 2 crutches. And then a month or 2 later, he came with a crutch and a cane. That was followed by 2 canes, and eventually no cane. And one could certainly not call his walk, his gait, elegant in any way. It was much more of a lurch. But the man got where he wanted to go under his own steam. I had never seen anything like it. It was so inspiring. Since then, I have witnessed many healings that she did. But that was for me the most dramatic, perhaps because I was the youngest. But very, very inspiring. And I was told when I was at Lilydale and I was a child, that the first year I was there, must have been about 5, possibly 6. I was told by many mediums there that I was destined to be a very good healer. Since then, I have to say that I'm terrific with migraines. If any of you have a migraine, once we can get together in person, I'm the person you want to see. Really good with getting rid of a migraine. At any rate, that's how it was growing up there. Now, this path to spiritualism. Those early years were very inspiring and very wonderful and formed a great foundation. However, when at age 14, I had to return to my parents' home because they needed me at that time. Another story, but not important right It was the beginning of puberty, the teenage years, terribly, terribly difficult. And I shut down. I didn't deny spiritualism at all, and I didn't give up. I gave up any practice for it because it was too much dealing with adolescence. I have great love for teenagers. And I taught high school, particularly in the boarding school in Massachusetts, where I was a house mother, the largest girls' dorm. It's a very painful period for many teenagers. And I understood that, so I was very helpful to many of them. As I said, I sort of shut down all spiritual growth at that time. It wasn't until, as I learned later, the time of my Saturn return, around age 28, that I realized I'm ready to return now. I'm ready to grow in it. I'm ready to follow in my aunts, collectively their footsteps. And shortly after that realization, I lost first one and then the other within a year. I realized now that that had been foreseen and that I would have to find my own path, as we must all find spirituality. I think that it is never good for any one of us to follow a guru of any sort. You don't want to be walking behind someone, eating it all up and devouring it. You want to be walking at most with a guru, then at least alongside them, so that you are finding. So the first thing that I stumbled on for me was astrology. It's what presented. I said, yes, I studied. I have never read. It's been quite useful. But after about 3 years with that, I moved to this boarding school. I met a Budapest, what is that? Budapest, can one of you help me? Nationality?
Not.
Yes. What's the country that Budapest is in? That's what I'm looking for the word. Oh, well.
Hungary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Ministry classes that I taught, I would be missing a word.
It is what is Hungary. Yeah, see.
Okay.
That would have been.
At any rate, they were Hungarian. They both taught mathematics. But the woman also hosted a weekly meditation group at their home. And that's to formal meditation. And it was wonderful in the school because all of the activities were all encouraged both by for the faculty to join as well as the students. And it was really lovely. And this meditation group had about 1 2/3 students. And I began to study it formally with books and as well as with this woman. So that was the next step on the spiritual growth. You follow whatever comes your way. You are offered 2 different things. Don't say, oh, which is the best one for me to do? Whichever one you pick, there are no mistakes here. Whichever one you pick, you're going to learn certain lessons on that fork. So don't ever feel that your spiritual path has to be predetermined or it has to be guided by someone. Guided by you. what you feel is right for you, where you may enter it with lots of questions, doesn't matter, but go into it open-minded, being willing to explore. There is no mistake ever. So long as you are on the path of looking for what is best, that is not going to hurt any, then you can only meet, because like attracts like, you can meet other good people on the path. Don't be worried about it, and don't be frightened of it. It requires only your desire and an open mind. An open mind can well be that you was, well, I had trouble accepting that. But build your own construct that makes sense to you, hurt anyone. Now, the next thing after meditation, I have to tell you that I had many students at that school that were interested in many different aspects of spirituality. And I found them very interesting. We could talk openly at that school about many different things. I hadn't yet found my way back to the Spiritualist Church, but I certainly was. And I had this very strong background in spiritualism. So when I met my third husband, he was well aware of my own inclinations. By that time, I had become very involved with the Arcane School, which met in New York City on the night of the full moon. Met every month for a couple of hours of meditation on world peace. Now you may say, well, they weren't particularly successful, but it's you have to stop and think of what it might have been if you hadn't had this group meeting and meditating on world peace. There is something that is extraordinary to be meditating with a group of 200 people. It's a guided meditation, not exactly the way Terence did it. And by the way, Terence, that was a very beautiful, beautiful meditation. I loved it. But the guided meditation, as it's done in this group, is just a 5-minute talk to begin with, and then the leader of it just giving you 1 or 2 words so that everyone is moving together into the next thought. And you can actually feel a buzz in the room. It's electric. You have 200 people meditating together and moving together. It's something that has just, I've never experienced anything quite like it. Leon was open to it, not closed to anything at all like this, but he did ask only that I not discuss this spiritual life with either his clients or his family, and I agreed to that. I'm pretty good at hiding. But he was always amazed how we came from 2 such very different backgrounds. And he was an atheist, had been raised as an Orthodox Jew, had become an atheist. And I said, well, you can't be an atheist because atheists are absolutely certain that there is no God and that there is no whatever. I said, you can't be certain of that any more than anybody can be certain that there is one. So that at the very least, and agnostic. Well, that intrigued him, and he was studying that word for some time, and he finally agreed, yes, he's an agnostic. When he died, my friend Heather Robbins, who is an interfaith minister and is a professional astrologer, I've sent many people her way. She came from Montana to comfort me. She stayed with me for a week. Right after she arrived, and she knew my whole history, So she said, Janet, would you like to attend the spiritual church this evening? And I said, you mean there's one in New York? She said, not only is there one in New York, it's only 5 blocks away from your apartment. So I'd love to go. And I have to tell you, it's like going home. Well, it was going home, actually. It really was going home. And that night, Stephen Robinson was there. He wasn't directing the service; somebody else was doing it. But he was during the announcements. He was talking up his next class for psychic development. I said, this is for me. And I went to speak to him afterwards, got into that class, and went through the whole thing. Through the psychic development, through seance conductors course, through energy healing, through the ministry course, and began teaching the ministry course. So, my friends, that is my spiritual path. Yours, you wouldn't be here if you're on a spiritual path, or at the very least, intrigued by it. At least intrigued. So, I'm not encouraging or discouraging anyone from spiritualism, but just follow whatever makes sense to you that is your spiritual path and for spiritual growth. It doesn't matter what it is, so long as it feels right for you. It includes meditation. It's got to include meditation. No matter what it is, it's got to include that, because that's how you connect with your spiritual growth. Whether you call it with God, with spirit, as we do with universal intelligence, whatever. Be open to it, explore it, and grow with it. And I would like to, I've been rambling, I know, but it is the story of my life and my spiritual growth. I hope you will find something in it that will inspire you to go on with yours. And I would like to, a prayer, a short one, but it seems fitting it can act as our benediction for tonight, as well as just something that I'd like to tie this together with. So please join me at least in thought here. O great universal intelligence, divine parent, we ask that you continue to enlighten our minds and to draw out knowledge and to live our spiritual life, regardless of what it is, our spiritual life in growth. And please bring to it our willingness to see, to live our spirituality without fear and in openness, and to continue to see our sacred duty, and that is to love and serve one another. Amen. Back to you, Terence.
Like a news report. And Terence with the weather.
Yes, the spiritual weather. Yes.
The spiritual weather. Well, thank you, Janet, for that lovely talk. I'm sure everybody can does agree with me that you've led a very fascinating and spiritual life, and who wouldn't be inspired by your journey? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think everyone's journey will inspire them.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly hope so.
Well, everybody consider Janet's prayer the benediction, so you're free to, unmute your mics and
Unmute
speak
and talk.
freely.
If any of you have questions, I mean, I'll be happy to answer, but I don't know if you have questions.
Thank you, Janet. That was beautiful.
Thank you. I didn't know if it would be beautiful, but I hoped it would inspire people to continue on their studies. That's,
And thank you for the meditation, Terence. That was really incredible.
Thank you.
it really was
I
gorgeous.
didn't want to
Yeah.
leave my tree.
I love it.
Yeah. I do too. There's nothing more grounding, really, when one is feeling ungrounded, as to sit on the ground with your spine against a tree.
Oh, man.
It's so, ooh, wow, so healing. It's so healing and so grounding.
It's nice.
I heard somebody mumbling, but I don't know who.
It's nice to see Senor Joseph.
Joseph, I was so glad to see you. Joseph, I wanted to ask you a question. What is the background that I see there? It looks like a boardwalk or something.
Yeah, it's the boardwalk for Brooklyn Bridge, my old home.
Ah,
Thank you very much for a very inspirational talk and for a very fantastic meditation. I'm sorry that I joined a bit late, but it was very, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Joseph, you
I'm
can
so
go
glad
ahead
you were
anytime
there.
and you're welcome.
Thank you.
But Joseph, you cannot possibly be dressed as you are dressed on the boardwalk now. It's too cold. Is this a photograph behind you or something?
You don't have to burst my bubble, Janet. You can only dream.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry, but I know you cannot possibly be sitting in a t-shirt on the boardwalk. Come
Yeah.
on, I'm not that dumb.
When
I mean, actually, I could be, but
No, you're not. When I moved from Brooklyn, I decided to have that as a backdrop on my wall. I love Brooklyn a lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so that's your wall. I thought it was the,
No, it's my wall. It's my real wall.
okay.
wow. But where are you now, Joseph? Are you in?
I live in Queens.
Manhattan or where? Oh, you're in Queens.
In Queens, yeah.
Ah,
Wow. And anybody from Queens would see your apartment wall and think you're a
a Manhattanite
Trade
or a
queen.
Brooklynite.
Brooklynite.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. A whole wall of it. Wow.
Yeah, thanks.
That's
Yes.
a great idea. It is.
I used to walk over the bridge during the summer because I work downtown